Today we begin our journey through the Mitzvot, book number 10 of the Rambam, the book of purity. Today we talk about the concept of spiritual contamination and spiritual purity, right? If you touch a dead body, you become tameh, right? A woman has a baby, she becomes tameh. Semen comes out of a man's body or the menstrual blood from a woman's body, tameh. Touch certain dead lizards, certain dead carcasses, you're tameh. Is it bad to be tameh? Is it negative? Not necessarily. Huh? It's a mitzvah to bury the dead. Chevra Kadisha, the burial is a very big mitzvah, bury the dead, right? If you're not, except for a Kohen. Kohen's not allowed to, right? Is it wrong for a woman to have a baby? It's a mitzvah to have a baby, right? It's not wrong to be tameh. It's not bad to be tameh. It's a natural state. It's only when one is in that state, one may not enter the temple or eat sacrifices. If you eat sacrifices or enter the temple when you're in a state of tameh, that's a sin, right? Since today we don't have a temple, we don't sacrifice anyway, it doesn't apply today. The only thing that would apply today would be we're not allowed to go on the Temple Mount. The reason why we're not allowed to go on the Temple Mount is because everyone today, if you touched the dead body, you shook hands with the Undertaker, right? Who's the last guy to let you down? The Undertaker, right? You become tameh, right? So we're all, since we don't have the red heifer, we'll talk soon about the red heifer, we can't take off that tumah, so we're all tameh today, so we can't go on the Temple Mount. There are those who say you shouldn't stick your fingers into the cracks of the kotel, right? I'm not saying it's halach, I'm just saying there are those who do that. The question is what the kotel is. The tour guides will tell you it's a retaining wall, right? But some say it was an inner wall, and if it's an inner wall, you can't stick your fingers in. Anyway, it's just a chumrah. In any case, what's the common denominator of all these different forms of tumah? So I once heard a very beautiful explanation that something that is a container of life, and that life left it leaves behind a negative impression, right? You have $1 million in your pocket and it's gone. Where's my $1 million, right? Negative impression, right? What's the biggest example of a container of life? A dead body. You had a soul and the soul left it, right? A woman has a baby, she has a life inside of her and it goes out, right? The semen in a man and the menstrual blood in a woman is a potential life. So it's on a lesser degree, right? Certain dead carcasses, certain dead lizards remind one of death, right? Another explanation is, Rabbi Hirsch says, that death and childbirth are phenomena which can make one lose their perception temporarily of the concept of free will. There's no choice in the matter. The guy just dies. The baby just comes out, right? There's no free will in it, right? So one can lose, to some extent, their perception of free will. Before one can enter the temple of God, which is the highest demonstration of free will, right? I'm coming and standing before the Almighty, right? You must go through, after experiencing childbirth or death, where you lose your perception to some extent, you must go through a purification process to regain that perception. Now, Judaism, death is a very bad thing. It's a negative thing, right? You're supposed to live forever, right? Death was brought because of Adam's sin. We were supposed to live forever. And we're programmed to live forever. Nobody thinks they're going to die, you know that? No one thinks they're going to die. I heard there's some people that die. I know there's some people, I'm not a member of the club, not me, right? Nobody really believes they're going to die, right? And the truth of the matter is we don't die. The body dies. The soul lives forever, right? In the secular world, they don't like to talk about death. It's too morbid. Take a trip to Bermuda. Don't think about death, right? All right? Because death makes absolutely no sense. It makes no sense. Imagine someone builds a skyscraper in Manhattan for $1 billion, right? Takes him 3 years to build it. He makes state-of-the-art offices with telecommunications and telephones and computers, right? And then he makes a dedication service, and the mayor comes and makes a speech, and they drink champagne. And after the dedication service, you know what he does? He takes some TNT and he blows up his building. What do you say for this guy? Crazy, out of his mind, right? Person is born, comes into this world, grows up, right? Goes into his area, right? He becomes expert in his field. He gets married, has children, grandchildren, right? He has money in the bank, he becomes rich. And then what happens? He dies. Does that make any sense? Right? Are we living to live? Are we living to die? If we're living to live, then why do we die? If we're living to die, then why do we live? Why die at 95? Die at 5? Why drag it out to 95? I have not yet heard a secular answer to that question. Of course, the religious answer is we don't die. The body dies. The soul lives forever, right? So there's contamination, death, right? Sleeping is partially, we wash our hands in the morning, you're partially dead, right? So the Torah prohibits having contamination to a dead body. You have to carry the laws of impurity of a dead body, right? Then we have the red heifer. How do you remove the contamination of a dead body? So the Torah says a chok. You have categories of mitzvahs which are called edus. Edus means testimony. They have historical significance. such as the matzah and morah and the sukkah, right? Gid anoshe, right? Eating the sinew. Then we have mishpatim, man your fellow man, don't murder, don't steal. And then we have chukim, laws. We don't understand the reason, right? Why can't I have milk and meat? Why can't I have wool and linen? So after we have a mitzvah, we try to understand. There's books called Tamei HaMitzvahs. What is Tamei? The word Tam in Hebrew has two meanings. Tam means reason. It also means taste, right? Ta'im is very tasteful, right? When we have Tamim, we're not saying the reason for the mitzvah. I don't know what God's motivation was. He hasn't spoken to me in a while. I don't know, right? We figure out what is the tam, what's the taste, what can I learn from the mitzvah, right? And the classical example of a chok we don't understand is a red heifer. You take a cow that is totally red. It doesn't mean bright red, like it means reddish brown, the color of the cow's eye, reddish brown, right? If it has one black hair, it's still okay. But if it has two black hairs, it's no good, right? And you slaughter, you take it outside. It can never have done a stitch of work. Can't have a blemish, right? And never did carry the yoke, right? Hasidim say, someone who thinks they don't have a blemish, God's gift to the world, they don't have the yoke of heaven, right? So this animal symbolizes pure physicality. Take it outside the camp. There's no room for someone like that in God's camp. And you slaughter it, in Jerusalem was done in the Mount Olives, right? They sprinkle the blood, they slaughter it, they sprinkle the blood in the direction of the Beis HaMikdash, right? That's why the eastern wall of the Beis HaMikdash was lower than the other, so on Mount Olives you can look over it and see the sanctuary, say the Holy of Holies, right? Sprinkle the blood. And then we burn this cow totally, right? You take the ashes, and you mix it with water from the basin, we mix it with water, right? And you sprinkle it on the person who contaminated to a dead body on the third day and on the seventh day. If you didn't do it on the third day, it doesn't help the seventh day. And that takes him off. Now, we don't say that what the paradox about paraduma is that all the people involved in preparing this, the ones who burnt it, the ones who gathered the ashes, are all tamei. They become tamei until the evening. And you sprinkle it on a guy, if you touch this water, you become tamei. If you sprinkle it on a guy who contaminated to a dead body, he's tar, right? Paradox. A guy, someone dropped dead in front of this guy, and he thought he was tamei, right? So he went and he did the paraduma. At the end of the week, it turns out the guy was only in a coma, and he came alive, right? The guy who got the water sprinkled on him is tamei. If the guy would have been dead, he'd be tar, right? He had red ever, right? Because the guy wasn't really dead, right? So he wasn't really tamei, right? Someone who's not tamei, you touch the red, you become. Why does it make someone clean, unclean? That's a paradox. That's why it's a chok. It says, even Shlomo HaMelech said, I tried chachma, and I didn't. I couldn't understand. I couldn't reach it. I've got the pasuk. What's the pasuk? Shlomo HaMelech says, I looked for Chachma and Huru Chachmimeni. He figured out every single mitzvah in the Torah except this one. This one he couldn't figure out. And once he saw he didn't understand this one, retroactively understood that he didn't really understand the others either, right? Only Moshe Rabbeinu understood it. Moshe Rabbeinu understood it, right? Yeah.
Is there only time until the evening?
What?
The people involved?
Yeah, only till the evening, right. No, just till the evening, right. Anyway, we do have a time. Rashi brings Moshe Darshan, right? We find a lot of parallels between the red heifer and the golden calf. Right? The rabbis put it this way: when the son of the maidservant makes dirty in the king's palace, who's got to clean it up? His mother, right? The heifer is the mother, and the calf is the baby, is the son, right? But there's a connection. And what did Moshe do to the red calf, to the golden calf? He burnt it with fire. He mixed it with ashes. He mixed it with water. It made everybody tamei, right? And as far as is also tamei, right? What's the analogy? What's the connection with the golden calf and the red heifer? Right? When Adam sinned, he brought death into the world. At Sinai, when the Jews accepted the Torah, they rectified the sin of Adam, and they were supposed to live forever. And what brought death back? The golden calf. So the golden calf brought death back. The mother, the heifer, has to take off the contamination of dead bodies. And to take this analogy a little bit deeper, what was the sin of Adam? He ate from the tree of knowledge. What do you mean the tree of das? What did the snake tell Chava, right? You eat from this tree and you'll know everything. There's nothing you won't know, right? That was the sin of Adam that caused death. And how do we take off the contamination of death? With a mitzvah that even Shlomo HaMelech had to admit, I can't understand it, right? Why do we keep on our heads? There's a limit to our understanding, right? We don't understand everything, right? The red heifer shows we don't understand everything, and that takes off the sin of Adam, which was the tree of knowledge. You see the connection? All right? The third day and the seventh day. I always had a question when it came to the story of Hanukkah, right? You all know the story of Hanukkah, right? They contaminated the oil, right? And they couldn't find any oil that they could light the menorah with, right? And they found one container, right? No one could explain her, so they blessed the great sustainer, right? And they found one, and it burned for a whole, it was only enough for one day, and it took a whole 8 days to get more, and it burned for 8 days. You remember the story, right? You all know the story, right? I always had a question on that story. Why did it take 8 days to get more oil? You mean to say there were no olive trees in all of Jerusalem? You had to go to the Galilee to get olives, right? I'm sure there were olive trees in Jerusalem. Why didn't you take olive trees? It doesn't take 8 days. Good question, right? Luckily I have a good answer. And the answer is, all the vessels to squeeze the olives were contaminated. There was a war going on. There were dead bodies all over the place. So in order to use those vessels, you had to sprinkle on it the water of the red heifer. How long did the process take? 7 days. And the 8th day, they squeezed the olives. That's why. You learn something new every day? Okay. So, by the way, one red heifer lasted for many, many years. Just a little bit of ashes. It lasted for, the one that Moshe Rabbeinu made, they had to save up. They still had ashes. They mixed that with the other ones, new ones, right? There was just a few red heifers over throughout history. They lasted for 100 years, one red heifer. All right, that's a red heifer, right? And it says that it can't have a yoke on it. If you put a yoke on the red heifer, it disqualifies it. What's a yoke? Not Y-O-L-K, not egg yolk, Y-O-K-E, right? When you want the cow to pull something, a bull, an ox, you put around the yoke and you connect it to the wagon or to the plow, right? What's the definition of a yoke? If I put a feather on this red heifer and it carries it for a few steps, it's disqualified. But what if the red heifer has a sore on its back and I put a bandage on it? A heavy bandage, right? Is that a yoke? No. Why not? Because it's for the benefit of the cow. What if it's very cold and I put a blanket on the red heifer? A heavy blanket. Is that a yoke? No. Why? Because if it's for the benefit of the cow, it's not a yoke. If it's for my benefit, it's a yoke. How is that relevant to us? Because 2 times a day we say Shema Yisrael. What are you supposed to think when you say Hashem Echad? I'm accepting upon myself Ol Malchus Shemayim, the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. What does that mean, right? You ever see the swearing-in ceremonies of the soldiers at the Kotel? They give him a rifle, they give him a Tanakh. Ani nishba, I swear, right? I swear to give my lives. I always have mixed feelings when I see that. On one hand, we have to appreciate the soldiers. They're protecting us. We have to appreciate them, of course, right? On the other hand, in the background, you see the people davening in the Kotel. We say that proclamation twice a day. I'm ready to give my life for Hashem. What does it mean, a yoke of the kingdom of heaven? If someone enjoys learning Torah, and you should enjoy learning Torah, right? It's not a yoke. Someone enjoys doing mitzvahs. You should enjoy doing mitzvahs, but it's not a yoke. One morning, I get up in the morning, today, I'm not in the mood for learning Torah today. I want to go to Ben Yehuda, right? I'm not in the mood for doing mitzvahs. You do it anyway, then it's a yoke. When it's difficult, when you say Shema, I have in mind, I'm thinking, I'm ready to give my life for God, right. And it's very easy to say that, right. Yeah, it reminds me of the story of the communists. When the communists took over in Russia, they sent the commissars to explain to the peasants what communism is all about. He says, for example, you have a field, right? You have a factory, right? You give 1/10 of the factory to Mother Russia, no problem, right? You have a store, right? You make merchandise. You give 1/10 to Mother Russia, no problem, right? You have a house, 1/10 rent, Mother Russia, no problem. You have a chicken, no, you can't have my chicken, right? I understand. You're ready. The factory's okay. Your field's okay. I don't have a factory. I don't have a field. I don't have a chicken. A chicken I have, right? You can't have it. That you can't have it. I'm ready to give my life for God, right? But to do something, think of something which is difficult for you. Not to speak Lashon Hara, not to talk during Seder, whatever is difficult for you, right? That's hard, right? Think about something which is difficult, right? I'm ready to give yoke, even when it's difficult, right? I experienced it on Tisha B'Av, right? Generally in the morning when I put on my tefillin, I enjoy putting on tefillin, I enjoy davening. It's not difficult for me, right? But Tisha B'Av, you say for 2 or 3 hours of kiddush, then it's mincha time, right? And it's hot, and I'm sweating, and I put on my tefillin, and I wear Rabbeinu Tom's tefillin, and I say, I feel it's so difficult, right? But you do it anyway, even when it's difficult. That's when it's a yoke, right? That's the lesson we learn from the red heifer. Okay. Then we have Neged Saras. Neged Saras is leprosy, which is a false translation. That was the King James Version, translate leprosy. Leprosy is a physical disease, right? Where limbs fall off. They have leper colonies, right? But the Torah is talking about a spiritual disease, right? Which cannot be a physical disease. What's the proof? Right. You find leprosy in your house, right? And before you call the Kohen in, you take everything out of your house, right? So it shouldn't become tamei, right? If it's a physical disease, epidemic, right? Before you go, if someone has leprosy on their skin before the holidays, the pilgrimage holidays, you don't look at it until he comes out. It comes back to usual life. He'll spread the disease, right? The whole week, don't look at it, right? That can't be a physical disease, right? So the rabbis say leprosy comes from a spiritual illness, from speaking lashon hara, speaking bad about others, and from stinginess. Haughtiness is stinginess, right? So a guy was speaking lashon hara. So the order, there are three forms of leprosy. There's on the skin, on the garment, and on the house. The order the Torah gives is skin, garment, house, because that's the order of severity, right? It's more severe on the skin than it is on the garment and the house, right? But the rabbis say the chronological order was the other way around. Someone was speaking lashon hara, and he sees a blotch on his house, right, on the wall. He's got to call the Kohen, take everything out of the house. Right? And I would say it was very embarrassing because this guy was very stingy. He wouldn't lend his things to people. Can I borrow your typewriter? I don't have a typewriter. Can I borrow your lawnmower? I don't have a lawnmower, right? Then he's got to take everything out of the house on the front line. You see, there's a lawnmower, there's a typewriter. Very embarrassing. And the Kohen says, you've been speaking lashon hara, right? You have to close the house for a week, come back and see if it spreads. If it spreads, you got to take out the wall, the stones that have the snag and bury them. If it spreads after that, you got to knock down the whole wall, right? And what if he has a neighbor next door? What did the neighbor do? What's his fault? He's got to lose the wall too? What did he do wrong? Oh, the Rasha, oh, the Shcheno. Woe is to a wicked man, woe is to his neighbor. Make sure you have good neighbors, right? You have your wall knocked down, all right? Keeps on speaking lashon hara on his garment, on his leather garment, on his wool garment. He finds his blood, you got to burn it, right? Keeps on speaking lashon hara on his skin, on his bald spot, on his hair, on his beard. And the Torah goes to detail, explains exactly what it looks like, right? White blotches. We don't know exactly. We never have it today, right? Chavis Chaim says we still have it today, it's just under the skin. You don't see it, right? The Torah has to tell you exactly what it looks like. So you have to know if you go to a Kohen or to a skin doctor, right? You got to know where to go, right? All right? So that's the punishment for speaking lashon hara, neged tzaras, right? That's the formula of eventually. So if he has legna tzaras, he's got to go outside the camp. Outside the camp, be all by himself. His lashon hara caused friendships to break up, marriages to break up. I'm sure not more than one untimely death has been caused by people speaking bad about others. Right. What a utopia we would live in if nobody spoke lashon hara. Right. And our society appreciate that. In the Torah society, we try not to speak lashon hara, right? We may not succeed, but we try, on the telephone. Don't speak lashon hara, right? Okay. Then we have. So at the end of the period, the Mitzvah, the Kohen goes out and sees it's cured. He's got to. So how long do you have to be outside the camp? A week, 10 weeks, a year, 10 years.
Until it's gone.
Until it's gone, right? Miriam was a week. The entire Jewish people had to wait for Miriam, right? And we have to learn a lesson from Miriam, right? It's a special mitzvah to remember Miriam, right? I would say it's lashon hara talk about Miriam, but anyway, the Torah learns a lesson from her. Miriam was so righteous, right? And she thought her brother did something wrong, right? The story was that there was Eldad and Medad, two prophets who were prophesying in the camp, right? And Sipporah says to Miriam, "Oh, they're prophets. I feel bad for their wives because Moshe abstained after Mount Sinai. He abstained from his wife." Right, for 3 days, all the people had to separate from their wives for technical reasons before Sinai. And after Sinai, Moshe says, go back to your tents, right? It's one thing to accept the Torah on Sinai. Now go translate that into your everyday life. Go home with your wives and live the life of Torah. That's not so easy, right? But you stay with me. Moshe decided, since I'm always in contact with Hashem, I have to be pure. After going and have relations with your wife, I have to go to the mikveh. And he abstained from her, right? And she didn't know that. She thought all prophets did that, right? So Miriam says, your husband abstained to you? Who does he think he is? Aaron and I are prophets. We don't stand for our spouses, right? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are prophets. They didn't abstain. Who does he think he is? And all of a sudden, God appears to them. All of a sudden, and Miriam and Aaron had relations. They were tamei. Fast, mikveh, fast. He was trying to show them that you have to always on state of readiness, right? And he said, you dare compare your level of prophecy to that of Moshe? Right? Moshe is the greatest prophet that ever lived. Why? Because he gave us the Torah. And Miriam got leprosy. The entire camp had to wait for her for a whole week, just like she waited for her baby brother in the Nile River. So they waited for her, right? And what did they learn during that week? They learned guard your tongue. They learned all the laws of lashon hara, right? Chavetz Chaim, right? And we have to learn we have to learn kal v'chomer. If Miriam was so righteous and she had a good intention, she was telling her brother Aaron she felt that Moshe was doing something wrong, and Moshe was so humble, he didn't mind, the most humble man that ever lived, and yet she got punished for it. When we speak lashon hara, we're not so righteous. Right? We don't have such a good intention. The guy does mind, right? Boy, are we in trouble. We got to learn a lesson from Miriam, right? That's the idea. Okay. There's a book called Guard Your Tongue, Rabbi Pliskin, right? He adapted the book of Chavetz Chaim to English-speaking people, right? I know a guy who became religious just reading that book. Read that book. He wasn't sure if there's a God or not. He read that book. There's got to be a God. No human being made up these laws. It's got to be from heaven. It's got to be from heaven, right? I'll give you one example, right? You're not allowed to speak negative things about your fellow Jew, right? But what if your best friend says, asks you, I want to go into a business deal with Jack, right? Should I or not? What do you say? You happen to know Jack is a thief. If you go into a business deal with him, he'll lose all his money, right? Are you allowed to tell him? Not only are you allowed to tell him, you must tell him. You're required to tell him, right? But there are a number of conditions, right? How do you know he's a thief? Is the first hand to the second hand? Will Jack get more punishment than is coming to him? And the most important condition is, what's your motivation? Your motivation has to only be to help your friend, and not because you don't like Jack. Now let's say Jack is your worst enemy, and he's always doing terrible things to you, and you hate his guts, right? And he also happens to be a thief. And you know if you tell your friend your intentions, you don't like the guy, right? So tell him, ask somebody else. You're the only one who knows. You're not allowed to tell him. On the other hand, if you don't tell him, he's going to lose all his money. You're not allowed to not tell him. You're not allowed to tell him. You're not allowed to not tell him. What should you do? You got to say, hold on, wait a minute. Let me think about it. Think about it for a while. I don't go into a room by yourself. I don't hate Jack. I don't hate Jack. He's a fellow Jew. I got to love him, right? But what can I do? He's a thief. In other words, you're not allowed to tell him with the wrong motivation. You're not allowed to not tell him. So you've got to tell him with the right motivation. You got to work on yourself till you get the right motivation and then tell him. Right? Is that a man-made law or a God-given law? He says, that's got to be God. No person made that. I mean, another example of that. You ever hear of Franz Josef? Franz Josef was the emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, right? He was a friend of the Jews. He was very good to the Jews. But he only recognized the Orthodox rabbis as a spokesman for the Jewish people. So when the reform movement spread through Germany and was coming to Hungary, they wanted to get his recognition. They decided they're going to ridicule the Orthodox. They took a section of the Jewish law, code of Jewish law, the laws that pertain how one must act in the toilet. You know, it's halachas, right? How much of your body you're allowed to expose, which hand you're supposed to use to wipe yourself. There's laws, right? And they translated that in Hungarian to ridicule the Orthodox. And he ever lost that? He read that. He said, "This has got to be God. No person wrote that." A boomerang, right? And I heard a fantastic story once from Noach Weinberg. Once told a story of a husband and wife lawyer team, non-Jewish, who converted to Judaism and moved to Jerusalem and became Orthodox Jews. How did it happen? Someone gave him a copy of the Rambam Nizikin, Maimonides' Laws of Damages. They were lawyers, team their expertise with damages. They thought, just 14 short chapters, no commentary, just translation. What's this? The Jewish law on damages. You thought you find it interesting. They saw as principles. So they said, lawyers have these case histories. Let's apply the Rambam's principles to our case histories. They took one case history, they went through all of their case histories and applied the laws of Maimonides. And all of a sudden it dawned on them, who's the genius who formulated principles in 14 short chapters that applied to every single conceivable case? They couldn't find one case the laws didn't apply. They said, who's the Rambam? Codification of the oral. What's the oral law? They looked into it and they ended up becoming Orthodox Jews. True story. All right. The Torah is the greatest proof of the Torah. Okay, that's Lashon Hara. Okay, we have other forms of contamination. I won't go into it now. We have the mikveh, right? What's the concept of the mikveh, right? The mikveh is a body of water, right? Going to the mikveh just takes a minute, right? But you have to clean your body first. You have to take a shower first. Women who go, say, today, the only one who's required to go to a mikveh, since we don't have a temple today, are married women. A married woman is forbidden to her husband after the menstrual cycle to go to the mikveh. That's not, by the way, that has nothing to do with tumah. That's a halacha. That's a special thing that she's forbidden to her husband to go to the mikveh. After she has relations with her husband, she's telling me again. If she wants to eat sacrifices, after she has relations with her husband, she has to go to the mikveh a second time, right? It has nothing to do with tumah, right? If you remember the kotel by the bus stop outside of the Dung Gate, you see all these little caves. You know what those little caves are? They're mikvahs, right? You notice there's a barrier in the middle. There's a wall in the middle because anybody who they came in one direction went out the other direction. Because if you touched someone going out of the mikvah, touched somebody going in, they had to go to the mikvah again. Right? You couldn't coming out. You can't touch the guy going in. Right? They have to have one entrance going, one entrance in, one out. Right? What's the idea of the mikveh? You're immersed in liquid. Mikveh is any natural body of water, right? A lake, an ocean, are all mikvahs, right? The mikvahs we have today it's rainwater, right? They special kind of pipes where they get the rainwater. Once you have a certain amount of natural water, like 40 saw, then you can add regular. So our mikvahs are actually regular water, city water, but it's connected with a pipe to the rainwater, to the natural water, right? What's the idea of a mikvah? I think the idea is that when you're in your mother's womb, you're immersed in liquid. And when a woman gives birth, what happens? The water breaks. The liquid comes out and the baby comes out, right? So going back to the mikveh, we're going back into the womb. When we come out to the mikveh, we're born again. We're born again as a Jew. That's the idea. Okay. Now we get to the book of damages. Book 11 is the book of damages, right? Property damages, right? Here we have, you learn Baba Kama, right? There are 4 categories of damage, right? An ox, a pit, a fire, and a person. A person is a category of damage, right? We go around damaging people, right? Mafia, right? All right. The ox had 3 subtitles, subcategories. We have Keren, Shane, and Regel. The horns, the teeth, and the feet. The horns is something which is abnormal. Ox do not normally gore. Only if they're, we think of the bullfights, right, where they take the red bandana. Right? Normally they don't gore, right? So therefore, if my ox gored your ox, the first 3 times, I only play half damage. Because I wasn't aware he was an goring ox. After 3 times, I know he's a goring ox. Now I have to take full damage, right? If teeth means eating, right? My ox goes into your backyard and eats your grain, right? He's enjoying it, right? But only in your backyard. If you left your food outside in the public domain and my ox ate it, it's okay. Because you should have left it there, right? My ox has the right to go in the public domain. Feet means unintentionally. My ox went into your backyard and stepped on your clay vessels and broke them. Again, only in your backyard. If you left your clay vessels in the public domain, I'm okay, right? So goring is things which is not normal, not abnormal. Teeth is eating, where he has a benefit from it, and feet are without intention, right? Quick quiz. My ox gores your ox. What category is it? Is it horns, teeth, or feet? Horns. No, you want to say teeth, right? It's not teeth, right? It's horns, right? My ox has an itch on its back, and he goes over to your wall and scrubs his back, knocks on your wall, right? What category is that? Teeth, because it's for his benefit, right? You see that? My horse is walking by. You have a store, and you have things in your store. And his man gets caught and pulls it and destroys everything in your store, right? That's feet, because he did it unintentionally, right? That's how we learn categories, right? Then we have pit, right? You open up a pit, right? A manhole, right? Today's called a person hole, right? PC, right? And the owner of the pit has to. I'm not the owner of the pit. It's not my city's pit, right? But you become the owner as far as damages. And 2 yeshiva boys who were learning about pits, right? They were eating bananas. They finished eating the bananas. They threw the fields on the floor, right? That's called making a pit. Putting a banana pit on the floor is making a pit. Someone can slip on it, right? Then we have fire, right? Fire. I make a fire in my backyard, and a normal wind blows it and burns down your house. If it's an abnormal wind, I'm not responsible. A normal wind blows it and burns down your house, right? But I made my fire over here, and it burnt over there. Why am I responsible? The rabbis compare it. It's like shooting an arrow. I shoot an arrow over here, and it kills the guy over there. What do you want from me? But I put into work the mechanism that caused that to happen in the end. I started it going, right? So it's like my fire, right? Now we have theft and robbery. What's the difference between theft and robbery? In English, it's synonymous, right? Theft is called geneva, and robbery is called gazela. Theft is a burglar. I sneak into your house when you're sleeping, and I steal. That's a theft, right? And robbery is open robbery. I grab your wallet and I run away. Who's worse? We would think that the robber is worse, right? And the rabbis say the thief is worse. Why? Because the robber is not ashamed. In the middle of the day, grabs your wallet, goes away. He's not ashamed of anyone. The thief, why is he coming in the middle of the night? He's afraid of people. He's not afraid of Hashem. You know, the burglar's prayer, please God, I shouldn't get caught. And a burglar, by the way, is a potential murderer. We have a law of mamachteris. If you see somebody digging a hole under the ground to dig, before when they had dirt floors, the way instead of going through a window, you would dig a tunnel underneath, right? You see somebody digging a tunnel into his friend's house in the middle of the night, you must stop him, right? If you can shoot him in the leg, shoot him in the only way you kill him. Why? Because the rabbis say a burglar knows. So the guy wakes up in the middle of the night, what's going to happen? He's going to try to stop him, right? And he comes prepared. He takes a knife, he takes a gun, just in case he gets in trouble, right? All burglars are potential murderers, right? And you got to stop him, right? Unless you know for sure it's the sun's size, it's daytime, there are people around, there are witnesses, it's a father burglarizing his son, we assume he will not kill his son, right? Fathers love it. Son might kill his father, but father won't kill his son. Right? It could be that bum. I supported him. I bought him candies. I sent him to school. Now he's a millionaire. He won't give me a penny. You can see father will burglarize his son, right? But he won't kill him. All right. We have scales, right? Proper scales have to be right? Someone he puts the scale into salt and makes it smaller, and he buys with one scale and he sells another scale. That's called stealing, right? And God knows, the same God who can tell who's the firstborn and who's not a firstborn, and he can tell which scales are kosher and which ones are not. Then we have boundary markers, right? Someone moves the boundary marker, and this is the category of what's it called? Plagiarism, right? Copyright, right? The copyright laws are based on this. There's a boundary between my field and your field, right? And I go in the middle, I just move it a little bit over, a little bit over more, right? Next time a little bit more, right? That's stealing my boundary. That's the category where that's forbidden. Why I can't plagiarize, or I can't take someone's copyright, right? I want to end with a beautiful story, right? But it always reminds me when I think of the boundary, right? There's a story in the Medrash of two brothers that inherited a field from their father, and they worked it together, right? And they divided the produce equally. One of them was a bachelor, the other one had a big family, right? And they divided equally. One day, the one with the big family says, it's not right. I shouldn't get half and eat half. He's all alone. I got a big family. I should give him more. So in the middle of the night, he picked up a produce and he went over to his brother's house, over the boundary, and he put it on his brother's side. A little bit later in the night, the other brother woke up. That's not right. My brother, he's got a big family. He's got more expenses. He should get more than I. And he went on the other side. He put it on the other side, right? Next morning, they measured the same amount. What happened? They tried it again. The next night, same thing. Next night, same thing. Till finally, they bumped into each other, bringing over grain to each other, right? And they knew what happened, and they embraced, and they kissed each other. And that's the spot where they built the Beis HaMikdash. That's the Medrash. Till we continue, Hashem. Right?